Welcome to Privacy News TV, our education edition. My name is Erika Ross, and I am a communications associate for FPF's Education Privacy Project. So it's been a couple of big weeks in the student privacy world. Amelia Vance, our director of our Student Privacy Project, testified before the Federal Commission on School Safety, public listening session. John Verdi, our Vice President of Policy, also testified in a hearing before the Commission, addressing confidentiality issues related to FERPA. So here I have Tyler Park. He's a fellow for the Student Privacy Project at FPF, here to answer a few questions about the projects that we've been working on. So, Tyler, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
So, I'm going to just jump right in. As a recap, what were the major issues that were raised at the listening session? What was the main messages that the Student Privacy Project was trying to communicate?
Well, we were asking the Commission to make recommendations that considered the need for privacy guardrails around school safety measures in order to ensure that student privacy and equity are protected. So we went ahead and we made 3 concrete recommendations that could both improve student safety and serve as those guide rails for privacy. So first, we recommended that the Department of Education's Privacy Technical Assistance Center provide guidance and training on FERPA provisions that permit data sharing in response to safety threats. The kind of second recommendation that we made was that any programs or proposals that are made to collect and analyze additional student data should be targeted only at the most serious threats to student safety, rather than enforcing kind of minor infractions of school policy. Third, we asked that schools be as transparent as possible about their data-driven safety initiatives so that everyone is aware of what data is being collected and how.
So I'm going to push back a little bit. If I'm a school, why should I care about privacy? Shouldn't school safety be the only priority?
Well, absolutely, school safety is a priority. But when not, their students can feel some really serious consequences. I mean, for example, students may not feel comfortable expressing themselves at school if they feel like they're being surveilled for every minute of the day. Also, there are some security measures like allowing law enforcement unfettered access to school surveillance systems that have been shown to disproportionately affect students of color. I mean, so without considering the implications of increased security measures, there can be unintended effects. So while keeping students safe is undoubtedly a priority, as it should be, schools also have to consider that they should be providing students with an environment in which it's safe to learn and grow.
Absolutely. So I want to switch gears a little bit. Last week, John Verdi, the VP of Policy, also testified before the Commission. So what were his main takeaways of his testimony?
Well, there were several. So the first thing that John did was he went and he actually highlighted common privacy risks and harms that take place when folks don't have adequate privacy protections. And FPF has actually spoken to this issue before. We published kind of a guide for algorithmic harms. There's a chart out there, and we can kind of link folks to it. But I mean, these are things like there's physical consequences to lacking privacy, financial consequences. You can lose your liberty, and even suffer something like identity theft. So beyond describing the risks, he also discussed how the use of children's data and data from schools can present heightened privacy risks. And then he identified several existing legal authorities, such as the health and safety exception of FERPA, which is a federal law called the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. And what that does is it permits data sharing in response to health and safety risks, while also providing meaningful privacy protections for students in schools.
So for our listeners, what exactly is the health and safety exception under FERPA, and how does this pertain to this issue?
Well, like I said, FERPA contains a specific provision that permits information to be shared by school officials in order to protect the health and safety of students, whether or not the student or the child in question is a danger to themselves or to others. And in 2008, the Department of Education clarified what that meant a little bit. So it amended the FERPA regulations in the wake of the Virginia Tech shooting to make it clear to schools that they have significant discretion in terms of when to disclose student information when there's an articulable and significant threat to student safety. So the department assured schools that it would support their decision to release that information if there was a rational basis for the school's determination at the time that it was made.
So, speaking on this health and safety exception, obviously privacy is a major concern in our field. So, what can be done about this concern? How can we ensure that student privacy and school safety are not mutually exclusive?
Well, I thought John kind of hit the nail on the head with this one in his testimony. So he actually offered 3 recommendations to the Federal Commission on School Safety, which basically were when crafting policy, the commission should be aware of the risks and harms that exist for privacy, and should bear those in mind when considering how to improve school safety. The second one is to engage with and educate stakeholders, so the actual people who are implementing the policy on the ground. That way that they can understand the existing legal framework, the health and safety exception, and how to mitigate privacy risks to students. And then he also called for neutral expert fact-finding on the causes, the extent, and the effects of both school safety issues and student privacy issues.
Well, thank you. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. For more information regarding all things student privacy, make sure you visit us at FERPASherpa.org and follow us on Twitter at FERPASherpa. Thanks.